didn't think of this until now. There was a freaking giant unicorn statue right out front. Look at this. I'm gonna text you this image right now.
I think that's a sign.
Look, I just texted it. That thing was right in front of the Eagle House.
I will send this to everybody in the Slack.
Erica, will you mute yourself? I think we can hear the double. Okay, we're on YouTube.
Yay! Cool, our first YouTube live. Woohoo! Well, then, let's let everybody in. Let's do this. At least get a party started.
Nothing like a Tuesday midday party.
Exactly. Welcome everybody that's popping in. I know it's locate the chat because you know how we roll. We got to get I'm going to ask you where you're calling in from, saying it's the most boring, over-asked question in the world. I don't even want to know. Let's see. But I do want to know, how have you practiced soul care recently? Self-care, it's a core value here. And or if you haven't practiced some self-care recently, how are you going to? Alex went to yoga this morning. Love that. Chris is like, I'm from Kelowna. Yes. That's so good. You guys are funny. Good. Walking on the beach for sunset tonight, Rose. That sounds amazing. Did some cardio yesterday, park with the kids. Went on a mountain bike ride. So good. Yes. Walking and listening to audiobooks. Hey, Tom. We go way back.
Long time.
Yeah. Well, welcome. Sweet. Bath and candles. Yeah, self-care has been challenging, but you're doing an art class on Wednesdays. Honestly, it's just the little things that compound. It's incredible. Yay, these are such good soul cares. We need to build a list of the 100. We have a list on our website of 100 ways to celebrate. We need 100 ways to soul care. I think this is the list. Welcome. We'll give people a couple more minutes to come in. We got this room opened up a little bit early, but then we're hitting it because we have a ton to cover. Sweet. What was took a holiday just now? You love that? Yay.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome. Welcome. Cool. Sweet. Right on. Well, this isn't really great. I think that, what do we want to do? Give it 30 seconds and then I think we're hitting it. Once it strikes at 11, we're going to become more Swiss.
Love it.
And do things right on time because we've got a lot to share with you. So who did the design for this? You love that unicorn violet color. Beth, get this. I actually used Imagine, that AI generating tool inside Canva. I said, I want a rising phoenix from the ashes, but not a phoenix, a unicorn. And then it did that, but it wasn't like in our colors. So I said, I want it in teal, orange, and pink. And this is what it came up with. How perfect is that, right? So yes, this was a Canva AI tool that made the most perfect rising from the ashes do-over presentation. Yeah, I know. You should have seen the other ones. They turned out great too. Well, sick. Man, people are just pouring in. We're already over 215 people. Good thing we updated the Zoom room 10 minutes ago. So good. All right. Well, I think it's 11. We're going to kick it. We'll teach folks you never want to be late to a party with us. Okay. So as many of you know, this is the redemption show for Chris and I. We presented at the Fundraising AI. There's Chris. You can see him waving. He doesn't have a hot pink shirt yet, but we're going to get him one. So he basically, we gave this presentation at the Fundraising AI Summit and had a ton of tech issues. It just didn't feel clean and good for us for how much we prepped. So today is that presentation again, but better because at 2 a.m. last night, Chris thought of something even like more powerful to give you in a demo and worked all morning on it so that it is here. Because you know us, we love to surprise you and over deliver. So a little bit of background if you've never seen us or don't know what we've been up to. Chris and I met last year at this mastermind in Kelowna, British Columbia, which is where he lives. And coincidentally, we sat down at a dinner table and he told me, I am using AI to write grant applications, had no grant writing experience in the past, no nonprofit experience. And he was just killing it, like starting to write these grant applications. And I thought, okay, we need to, let's see, my clicker is going to work. we need to see if we can't collaborate. So I gave him a copy of my book, How to Write a Grant, Become a Grant Writing Unicorn. And right thereafter, we started building Unicorn CoPilot. So this would put us in fall of last year, 1 year ago. And what it was designed around was a multi-phase approach. And it was about basically how do we help with the streamlining of that grant writer workflow before you get to the grant part, right? The project planning, the funding strategy, et cetera. And so Unicorn CoPilot was beta tested in October, fully launched to everyone within the collective November 15th. Meanwhile, Chris and his team were using AI to write grant applications, and they were absolutely slaying it with a high win rate. They were writing 40 complex grants with only 2 grant writers per month. They got to the point where they were taking 100-hour applications, and they got it down to where it was only taking them 4 hours to produce those complex proposals. They made $750,000 in their first year with no prior experience in grant writing, and they maintained a 70% profit on average per grant. So if you're not like jaw on the ground, then like you're not processing what I just said, because that was insane. So I was like, dude, you got to come spill the beans. What are you doing? Come talk to my people. So now fast forward, like I had a baby, right? Like days after we launched the cohort. He's right there in the center. You can see him giving the mean eye. But so he happened, took some maternity leave. Everybody is using CoPilot. Chris is scaling his company. And then we decide, let's have a mastermind for our grant writing consultants in the collective that have made $100,000 or more so that we can help them grow, to $1 million and beyond. And so that was what this gathering was about. Chris came, explained what they've been doing, like really, this is why it pays to get into the room. Like you want to just be in these physical spaces because what's shared in the flesh often is never going to be shared over a Zoom call. So it was really, really powerful. So then we roll into the summer. I'm just giving you all this context so you understand where we're at. So we roll into the summer and it's like, okay, we got to do what you just did in Canada in the US. So like, we built out a go-to-market strategy of how to enter the US market. We had a ton of our own grant writers do the research on that. I think 180 of you volunteered to do that grant research work within 24 hours. There was just so much momentum. So all of that looks really good, but why aren't we doing it then? Why have we not decided to enter the US market with the beta grant writing software? What happened? And this is what happened. Chris, actually, I haven't even introduced you. I'm so sorry. I was too hyped. Chris, you got to say hello. And maybe then, and here hello, I'm like, here, talk about your failure is the first word out of your mouth. Okay, but would you just explain sort of like what was the primary hypothesis that didn't work?
Yeah, so it didn't, the technology worked, it works. We're going to talk about how all that worked today. What didn't work for us is we were all business guys. And we built all of our software around writing grants for small businesses. And when we paid for all the research and we got to the very end, and what we realized going into the States was it was completely different than Canada, where we have lots of business grants. In the States, there just wasn't any business grants. It was all for nonprofits. And so what we had built was purpose-built for businesses, and it just didn't work for nonprofits. So that's why we kind of stopped in our tracks there. So common error of just missing the market demand.
Right. And it was just such a bummer because it worked so well. And you would think like, well, why wouldn't it work? But it's like the back end prompting just could not allow it to work for a nonprofit use case. So that brings us to July. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, snap. Like what are we doing here? And it was just, and of course we're sponsoring this event. And Chris and I are both like, where's the nearest rock so that we can go climb under it? We'll catch y'all in 2025. We both were just like, this sucks. Like it was a really, really, they spent thousands of dollars, thousands of hours to figure this all out to arrive at, dang it, like this didn't quite go the way we were intending or envisioned at first. So what we're going to share with you today are the 9 lessons learned the hard way, spending thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands, I would say more than hundreds of hours, probably easily, several thousand of hours to arrive at, okay, what is the difference between fact and fiction when it comes to AI and grant writing? What are the very practical areas that you can use it today and which are going to need more time? And what does all of this mean for a grant writer today? Because there is absolutely an incredible silver lining at the end of this that is an even better outcome than any of us could have possibly imagined. But you got to go through the wave with us to see what the last couple of months looked like to arrive at this. Okay. Okay. So let's kick this off with lesson number 1. AI is not thinking and not final. So it's going to get you past the blank page problem. This is the main takeaway. It is an exceptional thought leader, but it is not going to write a final draft, right? So Beda, they wrote 150 grant applications in 1 year, again, with no prior experience. Drafts took up 70% of their time to write the first few grants, which is, I mean, if you write grants, you know this, like the first draft is the hardest part. The editing is where the magic happens and also just doesn't take as long. So it was taking them 40 to 60 hours per grant application before they were able to whittle that down to 4 hours per grant, which was a 90% reduction in time. So that's all incredible. But it's not like that happened overnight. So Chris, just like a real quick overview on what this slide is, because I know it's a little busy.
Yeah, so it's definitely busy, but you can think of this as like the lineage of how we got to where we got, and how we were able to build this knowledge for everybody in this room. So we, like Meredith said, I had no grant writing experience. I built software, I built other businesses. So I knew a lot about business. I knew a lot about kind of how to market, but I knew nothing about grants. So the first like 5 grants that we wrote took us a month and a half to almost 2 months to do. And we did it all by hand, the traditional way, right? We interviewed our clients, we gathered it, we researched all the grants. And we spent like, a week and a half on every grant, just writing drafts, working with the clients, collecting all the information. All along, we had it in our mind that we were going to build the AIs to do this. So as we started doing it, we mapped the process we were learning. We then figured out, okay, here's the set of prompts and instructions that are for these grants. And we'll go through all of this. So I'm just going to talk high level right now. As we did that 5, 10 more times, we were learning, we were figuring out the prompts, we were able to repurpose it. Then what we did was we were like, okay, we've got this process down. Now we're going to try and automate this process. So we looked at automation from like building our own AIs to just like using, standard APIs and automations to just kind of like move the process faster. After we did about like 20 or 30 of those, by about November last year, we just started getting like really good, like where we could do our kickoff calls, we could have it go through, and we could get a draft out in like a matter of minutes, which freed up all of our time to just use our brains and just say, okay, does this narrative make sense? Does it match the requirements? What are we missing? What are we thinking through? And so we took the time to just use it not for writing drafts, but for doing the critical thinking and the editing, which was turned out to be the most valuable part and allowed us to just win clients and get to where we got to. And we were able to get 150 out. We were able to get these things. So I think that's like the big takeaway from AI is like you can use it to write drafts a lot faster, but writing drafts on its own isn't like the outcome you want. What the outcome you want is like a winning grant application, and a winning grant application comes from like your ability to like think critically and do editing. So the more time you have to do those, the better. Like that's just period. There's nothing else to say.
Yeah, no, it's exactly it. So think critical thinking. Okay, but sometimes I think a lot of us have run into, okay, but what if that draft sucks so bad that it's not even worth starting from it? And then you're like, how do I get this AI to write better drafts? So if you've experienced this, please say me too in the chat. So I know I'm not the only one that was like, what's the hype? Like early on, I just didn't understand. Like, why is this not writing better? What do I need to do? So that is what brings us to this lesson. So just like really high level overview, we're going to do a demo in a second.
Yeah, we're going to do some deep dives on this. So you can think of it as 3 things that you need to use any AI tool to get really high quality drafts. First and most important is context. Honestly, context is all that matters when it comes to AIs. For grant writing, there's 2 types of context, and I'm going to do a whole bunch of stuff for you guys today to show you this. There's Fundy context and funder context. Don't have to explain that to everybody. The second is like what we call like a sequence of prompts. You need to break everything down into logical steps so that you can get the AI to focus. And the third is you actually need to know how to piece together multiple tools or multiple AIs to do the full job that is getting a good grant draft done. Those are the three high levels. We're going to go into each one of them.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that tees us up for lesson 2. Lesson 1's kind of the most bulky, and then they pick up momentum. So lesson 2 is that context is all that matters. So the quality of the context fed into AI determines the quality of the draft. So the better the context, the better the AI answer will be. 80% reduction in hallucinations is possible when we just take the front end time to build better context. And by doing this and really working through this process over a lot of hours and hours of effort, Chris was able to say, okay, we can go from 10 plus attempts to generate a first good draft to just 1 or 2 attempts. And that all tied back to having well-structured context. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that makes sense intellectually, but like there's so much information you need to write a grant. How the heck are you supposed to decide like what actually is important? So there's 2 ways to think about it. I'm going to provide the background context and then Chris will lead us into a demo. Okay, so there's Fundy context and funder. So your client, your nonprofit is the fundee. The AI needs to understand your organization and the project or program you want to get funded. So this is where we put in 20% of the effort and you're going to get an 80% of the way to a really good draft. Okay, so this is like a no-brainer. Start here. This is the easy part. Okay. And so we have the templates for you on how to build all of this out, but this just gives you a high level overview, right? You've got just information on the organization, information on the project. If you are in the collective, you know that a lot of this derives directly from the project planning toolkit that we teach you to use. Okay. Then we've got the funder context. So this is the organization that's actually making the award of funds. And spoiler alert, this is the harder part to build. It takes 80% of the effort to get a 20% better draft, right?
Hello.
But hold on, mute yourself if you're chatting. This is where the drafts start all of a sudden to make a lot of sense, and you've really unlocked that leap ahead of almost everybody else that's trying to use AI to write grants. So again, here's like the high level overview, but we have all of the templates that you could get into later. Basically, all of the fund, and then something I know that we also ran into is that like, well, what do you do with funders? Because there's no standardization. Like maybe if you're going after federal grants, there's sort of a standardization if you read like a NOFO, but like otherwise, if you think about foundations and all of them, like they have all this information scattered about in all these different places. So what the heck are you to do? And that is what leads us into demo number 1, building context and getting a first draft in minutes. So Chris is going to share his screen and show us this. This is what we literally built this morning because we decided this was better than what we showed you last time. Woohoo! Yay, Chris. Thank you for like waking up at 2 a.m. to do this for us.
Yeah, so for context, no pun intended, or pun intended. Okay, so we at Beta, like we spent over a year and a half, myself, a couple other engineers, and we tried building all sorts of solutions to do all of this, like building of our clients' context and building of context on the grants. And, you know, we did a really good job of that, but honestly, you can do it easily by yourselves with just a little bit of training on how to use tools. And so when we started writing nonprofit grants, we actually used these tools to do it today. And we just abandoned the tools that we built for businesses because we were like, oh my God, you could just use these tools. So what I'm going to show you today is exactly that. How to build Fundy and Fundor context simply just using ChatGPT and some custom GPTs that I have built. Good news for you guys today is we are going to show you also how to build these custom GPTs. So first thing I want to do is like anybody that's using ChatGPT, you should have in your custom GPTs your own context. So in the custom instructions, you should tell it everything about your business if you're a grant writer, or your nonprofit if you're a nonprofit. Description, mission, vision, values, all of that stuff matters, and it's going to write better outlines for you. And then you should tell it how you want it to write. We're going to give you all of this stuff, and it'll be provided, but this is just first example. Okay, so let's say you want to build context about your client or the nonprofit that is seeking the grant. So we have a custom GPT. We call it Unicorn Grant Writer because it's been trained on everything from the Unicorn Grant Writing method. So let's say, for instance, you just did a kickoff call. You did this kickoff call, you recorded it on your Zoom, your Google Calendar, your Google Meets, your Microsoft Teams, whatever. Simply now using these tools, you can go in. I have a kickoff call transcript from one of my clients. I'm going to just upload that. Then I'm going to say to my custom GPT right now, I'm going to say, I want to build a project planning toolkit for my new customer. I'll give you everything you need in kickoff call recording. And now we're just going to give it that. And so it's just taking a recording of the call and a transcript. And we've trained this custom GPT on how to build a project planning toolkit, everything else. And so now it's going to do its thing. It's going to follow the unicorn method, and it's going to come back completely on point in our style, and it's going to write a project planning toolkit for that client. And we could edit it, we could change it up. We could also, I'm just going to kind of like breeze through this. We can also get it to do a power prospectus. Okay, this is good. I want to write a power prospectus for this client, and it'll be trained on how to write a power prospectus for this client as well. So now you can see we're building the context for this customer. In this case, it's a farm in Canada that's got an innovative technology. We could take this and edit it, change it up, work with the client and do it. So let's say the next thing up, I want to actually like analyze a grant. Okay, so I want to, I've done my funding strategy. I've got a couple grants, but I really want to make sure that these are a good fit. So we need to build funder context, right? Like if I'm going to write it, I need to know everything about this grant. So previously we were trying to build all these solutions in beta, but now we can build them here. So for today, I've got this grant analyzer. I've trained it on all of our extraction prompts and what to look for and how to build the context, all of those things that Meredith just showed you. So now I'm just going to go over here and I'm just going to say, okay, I've got this grant. It's called the Business Scale Up Grant. It's in Canada. I'm just going to take this grant that I downloaded from their website, and I'm going to say, tell me everything I need to know about this grant. And I'm going to do it. Because we've got this custom GPT and we've trained this custom GPT on what to look for in a grant, everything from like giving me an overview to its objectives to eligibility criteria, all of those things that you would need to know in order to craft a good narrative or build a skeleton, we've trained it to go and analyze grants to look for this. So you can now do this by just building your own inside of ChatGPT. It's going to give me my focus areas, everything like that. This is your funder context now, okay? And so what I'm doing is I'm taking 100 pages and I'm condensing it into the half a dozen to a dozen things that matter when answering the questions. What are your objectives? How do I meet the criteria? What should my project focus on? All that sort of stuff, right? So that it crafts the right narrative. Okay, so now let's say I've taken all of the stuff I've done. I've created like grant readiness, or in our case, I've created a business plan, and I've analyzed the grant and I've put together everything I need to know about the grant, right? Its objectives, what it's looking to accomplish, all that sort of stuff. Now I can go in and I use my same unicorn grant writing GPT, and I can go in and I can grab, let's say, a business plan that I've done for it, and I can grab a document I've created with the funder context. And I can just upload both of those. So now I've got both sides. I've got everything about the project. I've fleshed out it. I've got them grant ready. I've asked all the right questions. and I've done my research. I've organized everything about the funder. Now I can just go in and it's going to write way better drafts. You know, write me a project description for Frederick Farms to apply for the business scale up grant. And now knowing what it knows about the customer in the context and the grant, it'll write a far better project description and overview. And it'll even follow the templates that we've trained it on from Learn Grant Writing. And so you get like a much higher quality draft that's workable way faster. So that's how you can build context very simply using standard off-the-shelf tools.
Ooh, I hope everyone understood what you just saw. That was very, very cool. I actually hadn't seen it because he literally decided to build it this morning and share this with you instead. That is very, very powerful. Thank you, Chris, for showing that, because that's how we get AI to write better. That's what we're all here to solve. In like a very quick and dirty version anyway. Okay, so we just talked about that. We've got I think I'm going to skip this, but basically we'll talk about how you build this better context in the resources available. Okay, so lesson number 3, don't build molds for every grant. So when I met Chris last June, basically their approach was to build, and this is what they did, this is how they built their business, was they had these molds that were built super like for a specific grant program. So let's say if I wanted to write, like for instance, I guess you did like the Canadian agriculture export program, right? That one's coming to mind. And studied that grant inside and out, wrote a mold that was specifically for it. So then you could put in applicants, and like that context was already built. And that was why they also had such a slay of a high win rate, because it was built for that specific grant. But as many of you know, and what you might have like raised your, like why I was like, is this going to work? There's literally thousands of grants out there. Are you going to build thousands of molds? So the thing is, that's what then led to this lesson, which was that it's a lot of work to build those molds. And if you don't actually have enough grants to be going through that pipeline, then it doesn't really support the business completely. And like when we think about our clients and we think about doing a funding strategy, they need multiple grants to get their funds, to get their projects done. And often that new grant you wrote, you probably haven't necessarily touched before. So that led to, I mean, Chris worked on this like hundreds of times to try to build a mold for every grant program. And they'll tell you, don't do this. But that's not what we knew at April of last year. So we were really charging straight ahead of, okay, what molds are we going to build for the US to enter the US market, looking at healthcare, education, and ag sectors. So what we learned from that was that, and I guess I want to make sure, let me see if I have another slide on this. Yeah, I don't want to skip that. Chris, do you have anything you want to add to this before I go forward? Just like anything else you want to add on like the context of mold building?
And so mold building was like essentially building what you just saw for every single grant. We thought we could, treat it like a factory where we could get lots of clients for one grant. That was a fatal flaw in our business. What we needed to do was to be able to write lots of different grants. And so we ended up having to build like hundreds of molds. And the first ones took us months. And by the end, we were able to like figure out the commonality. And now, like using the demo you just saw, understanding the key components is what mold building taught us. And what it teaches us is like, what it taught us was that we don't need to build a specific custom GPT or a specific software for every grant. What we needed to do was figure out how to get the context for every grant that mattered to get an AI to write a draft. And that's what you just saw. So these things on here that you see, these 9 things, that's what you need. And you can get that for every grant really quickly. Like really quickly. You don't have to build them all.
Exactly. And so the solution now is, okay, we're showing you how to build a custom GPT. So all of those little buttons you saw on the left side, the grant analyzer, the unicorn grant writer, those are the custom GPTs that Chris has taken the time to train to be essentially his personal grant writing assistants to help write any grant application he might possibly want to touch. And this is included in what we have in a training guide for you at the end. Okay. and it's amazing. I actually just used the training to build out an email writing assistant. So to help me with writing emails. So it was really helpful using your training. Okay, so lesson number 4 is workaround for AI's lack of focus. So AI cannot focus, and this is a problem that billion-dollar companies are trying to solve. So how we address this is we have to break down instructions into the smallest steps possible, and then run each of those steps into a sequence one at a time. And then we chain those steps together in a logical way. And so this is when we start to enter the like intermediate area of using AI as a grant writer. So a 50-page grant application, which we all know a lot of them can look that way for state and federal grants, can easily require 100 plus prompts. And each prompt has to build off of each other. And as you can, that's why you've probably been hearing the term thrown around prompt engineering, because it is definitely like a very kind of scientific approach, maybe philosophy even approach of how you string this together. So how does the person approach this? And this is then when Chris discovered the chain of thought. So can you explain this?
Yeah. So I think we're going to do an example of this next, and I'll show you what I mean by chain of thought. But on the surface, grant questions are complex. So they're often written as one sentence. So, describe the project. But as grant writers, we know that a description of a project actually has multiple components, right? Where the project is, what the project is about, who the project helps, everything like that. So when we think about prompting and we think about instructing an AI, you have to remember the AIs, you got to break your instructions down into the smallest components. So take the question, think about what are the components that would make up a good answer. So project overview would have description, location, purpose, resources, like whatever. Then for every one of those components, you want to think through what are the steps that you would need in order to generate a good output. So location, understand the location. What are the benefits, like what are the dynamics of the location, the characteristics, geography, population. And then you want to go through each component and you want to break down into a series of steps to answer and build the output for that component.
Okay, yeah, exactly. There's a lot of really good questions on this. So I don't know so basically, because I'm kind of skipping ahead to the next lesson. I mean, I want to grab what Ginny just said. Like, wouldn't it be nice if we didn't have to all learn to be AI engineers? And I want to emphasize that you don't. Like, you don't. That's what, like, everything we're showing you, there's sort of like the beginner, intermediate, advanced version, and everyone falls on the curve of technology adoption in a different place. And you can take it as far or not as you want. There is going to be resources available for the people that want to really chase this bit down, and we'll show you how that all works in a little bit. Okay, so lesson number 5 is you need multiple AIs. So writing a grant requires a lot of different jobs. If you think about what you do, I think you can all agree that grant writing is actually probably the simplest, easiest part of our job, right? We've got administration, we've got research, data analysis, design, the writing, just all of these other tasks that we do as a grant writer, cat herding. So why is it better to use multiple AI tools instead of one tool, which often you think just of maybe ChatGPT? So the way I need you to reframe thinking about this lesson, because this is a really big one. I need this one to sink in, feel it in your bones. I need you to think of yourself as a project manager of multiple AIs. They are your assistants, your team. So owning that project management hat. It can do it basically. ChatGPT can do a decent job, but multiple tools are experts at different tasks. And this produces a higher quality output. So instead of thinking like you're hiring one generalist employee, you've got 4 part-time employees, right? That's how we're thinking about it. Someday, a super AI is going to be able to do it all. But right now, we are best using many. And I wanted to grab, Nancy posted this in Circle. That's our grant writing community, I think 2 days ago. And I love what she had to say down here, and I highlighted it in pink. She just got a job offer and she's starting it next week, which is awesome. But they were blown away and kept raving because they'd been looking for someone who understood the nuances that are taught here, especially the important role of project management in grant writing. So even the tools you're using to be a good project manager, whether we're with real humans, is just as important when you think about how you're using it with AI tools. So just really wanted to drive that point home. So can we kind of dive into like the truth behind this lesson, like how you tried to build one tool, like why we tried to build Beta?
Yeah, so the honest truth is like we probably spent a grand total of like 3 or 4 thousand hours engineering, trying to like take all of these different AIs, like image, video, audio, text, and we tried building like one tool and training it and like getting it to do all these different parts of grant writing. And it did a decent job, but by the time, kind of the summer came around, honestly, what we found was like anytime we got to like a new grant, like or we tried to do a grant for nonprofit, we found ourselves just like using all of these like tools that we had just bought and like that we didn't even build. We were just like, oh my God, we've spent so much time and effort trying to build our own tool, and yet these like billion-dollar Silicon Valley companies are just like they're beating us, like they're just way ahead of us and their features are getting so rich. And that was like when we pivoted and we were like, okay, like we could be a grant writer and not have our own software. We could just like design our workflow to use all these tools, and we just have to get good at using all these different tools. And it worked. Like we just kind of stopped building our software and we started just saying like, okay, we're going to use a custom GPT for this. We're going to use Perplexity for this. We're going to use Canva for this. And we're just going to like make our work, like our process flow, like optimize so that we grab stuff from here and put it in here. And like we were able to do it just as fast. So that's like the honest to God truth. And yeah, I don't really know what else to say. It's kind of embarrassing, but I think it's really useful to people because it's like you can literally write 150 grants and make $1 million just using this tool, like these tools. Like it's true. You can.
Yeah, and I think what's helpful here, so we can jump into demo number 2, and I guess while you get set up, I'll explain that. I mean, if you think about who else is in this space, you've got Grantable, who's been trying to build a software, has a software, and you've got like Instrumental's now entered the space, and like there's a lot of people trying to build the tool. And we originally thought like, heck yeah, that's what we want, just for our unicorns, this killer tool. And I think that's just been the weirdest kind of aha that's come from this. Is just like, whoa, we don't actually have to build your own island. And I think that's one of the biggest changes that's coming with this wave of AI. And the reality is it's an open source tool. So like, of course, they're seeing what creative developers like Chris are doing, and then they can just roll it out themselves. So you're kind of always going to have your innovation robbed from you. So it's really a little bit easier and better to just keep using the tools that they are continuously optimizing and have the money to do. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's roll into an example. This demo, everybody, you're going to love this. This is about how we use multiple AIs because we were just talking about the importance of that. So
Yeah.
let's do this. Let's go.
Okay. So I'll just kind of set this up. So talked about how we tried to build everything. So we tried to have a bunch of integrations that would do like grant research, and then we had a bunch of like integrations that tried to like do research on the internet, and then we had some stuff to try and like write drafts, and then we had some stuff to try and like make it all pretty and presentable. And all of the stuff we tried to build like never quite was as good as like the big companies that were also innovating in this space. Okay, so what we're gonna do today is I'm actually gonna show you like how we wrote grants and the workflow at a very high level. So we're gonna just pick a simple one question for a grant that we wrote, and this is for Metro. It's a nonprofit that helps the homeless. I do a lot of work for them where I'm from, and I'm gonna build a marketing plan for them. So this is what the grant question would look like. So it would say, describe the people you are serving, their problems, needs, and your marketing plan to ensure the success of the project. So this is like a pretty complex question, but this is like often what you get in grants. And so what we want to do is we want to break that down. Okay. We want to break it down into like who you are serving. So we want to build a profile. Then we want to do their problems. And then we want to figure out what their needs are. So like, how do we help them with their problems? And then we want to build a marketing plan. And then we want to think about in the marketing plan, what are like the channels, the tactics, a schedule to like, satisfy the needs and problems for this specific who. So the first step we would have to do as a grant writer, if we're working with like a different nonprofit that we've never worked with before, is we need to like do some research, right? And so there's a really amazing tool. Anybody that has never used this is like honestly the future. It's called Perplexity. And Perplexity is what we used for all of our grant research. So I'm going to take a prompt I have written just so I don't have to like type this all out. But very simple. It's just going to say like who I am, what I'm trying to research, Metro, and I'm just going to get it to like do some research about homelessness, population, everything. Okay. And so Perplexity is going to scour the net. It's going to read all the resources. It's really amazing. It's LinkedIn. It's honestly 100 times better than Google for doing research. And it's going to come back with like statistics about the homeless population growth in Kelowna, mental health addiction. It's going to start providing me a lot of the like citations and backup I would need in order to justify the need for the project that my nonprofit wants to undertake. When you're going to get a lot of these follow-up things like, you know, you can get it to give you more statistics, you can get it to do further analysis, and you could build and keep iterating and really build out great research in here. But for today, I just want to show you what we would do. So I'm just going to show you the process, not necessarily all the editing. What I would do is I would literally just grab this and I would edit it. I would take, you know, what I want in it, what I don't want in it, all that sort of stuff. I would look at the news sources. Okay. Then what I want to do is I would want to go over to my writing tool and I would want to go over to ChatGPT. Okay. I could use one of my assistants or my custom GPTs, but for today, because of the nature of the task, I want to like create a marketing plan. Okay. I'm going to use a new tool from ChatGPT called Canvas, and this is amazing. Okay. So I'm just going to go back to my Notion file. So I've written a prompt that's going to tell it the type of marketing plan I want. So I'm just going to copy that and then I'm going to leave a space to insert my Perplexity research down here. Okay. So I'm just going to put that in and then I'm going to go here and I'm just going to, so now it's got the prompt and it's got a space to put in the research, right? So now I'm going to go back to Perplexity and I'm just going to grab this research. I would never just blindly grab this research. I would edit it, parse it, make sure I want. But for today, just to show you the power and the process I did, I'm just going to do this. Okay. I would then just grab that and I would say, okay, go write me this plan. Okay. And what ChatGPT Canvas is going to do now is it's going to take it, it's going to write you a plan, and it's going to build this out. So for anybody that saw what we did and a lot of the innovation we tried to do at Beta is we tried to build this so that you could come in here and you could say, you know what, I want to just enhance this, right? I want to, you know, decrease the reading level. I want to like, you know, add emojis. I want to add some final polish to this. Like this is now the tool that's going to like help you do that. And you could even come in here now and you could, you know, get it to do all sorts of other things using Canvas. Okay, so now let's say you've worked this and you've rewritten this and you've got it and you've customized it to what you want to for a marketing plan. Now I'm just going to grab this, okay? But a marketing plan written like this is not so great when you're trying to like put your best foot forward for showcasing a grant, okay? Now I want to like add some dazzle to it. I want to make it into like a nice marketing plan that can go into a presentation to you know show people that we've thought out, you know, how this is going to work. Okay. So I'm going to take all of this. I'm going to say, here's a marketing plan. I'm just going to select all of this, grab it. Okay. Now I'm going to go over to a tool called Gamma. You can use Canva for this. I like Gamma, but they're all the same. So you could use it.
Zoom in a little bit if you can, just so we'd see it a little better.
So this is a tool called Gamma, Gamma.app. Okay. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to come over here and I'm just going to paste in that marketing plan. Okay. Then I'm going to go down and I'm going to say, I want a presentation on this marketing plan. And it's going to come over and it's going to like kind of ask me some stuff. I'm just going to quickly like whiz through this and I'm going to go do this. It's going to ask me some design. I'm just going to pick a design for today. And I'm going to say, okay, ready. Now generate me a fully visual marketing plan using this app. And what it's going to do is it's going to take that marketing plan, it's going to turn it into like a stunning visual that you'll be able to work. It's going to throw in images. It's going to start talking about the tactics we've come up with. It's going to add some like beautiful things. It's going to give me like the high traffic areas we want to target, how we're going to do that. It's going to give me like guerrilla marketing poster ideas, messaging on chalk, like all sorts of innovative things that we could get. Now, I'm breezing through this. A lot of effort went into like writing the prompts that I just did, but you can see the power of this. And so now, like, I've done the full job, right? I've done some research. I've, done my prompt engineering into like breaking it up into components and thinking about what I'm actually trying to do. And then I've done it, and then I've taken it and put it into something that gets me a first draft of like a visually appealing marketing plan in a matter of like minutes. And it's pretty great. Yeah.
And that in a nutshell is CRISPR Tooley. It's cool. It's cool. Like so humble when it's like, dude, you just dropped so much value and that was so sick to see it all like play out utilizing the best of each of those three tools. So like +1 in the chat if you have found that helpful. Yeah, blowing you up. There you go. A little love from the unicorn. So legit. Oh, so good. Okay, you guys, let's keep carrying on because a lot of your questions we're going to get to. Okay, so in the tools that we have available for you, there are kind of different levels of complexity. That's like the copy and paste, the automation technique, and the no code, and that is explained later on. So just know there's resources to help you guide you through that process. Okay, so lesson number 6 is AI should not do everything. So for those of you that were like, this is it, it's taking over our job, we're doomed, hang tight. We have absolutely positively with 100% confidence debunked that happening in anytime soon, because basically these are the things we need AI to do and these are the things we don't need it to use, because in many instances using the standard answers and templates that you already have is just the faster way to do it. So what do we not need AI for? We don't need it to find clients. And if you were an original beta tester with CoPilot, you know that that's what I set out on the mission to solve. Didn't work. We don't need it to draft new proposals. Our templates are awesome. You can just use them. We don't need it to rewrite a power prospectus for every funder or rewriting your organizational history and description and team biographies and budgets. So, okay, we don't need AI for that. What do we want to use it for? We're using it as our thought partner with idea generation, market research, like we just saw with Perplexity, grant skeletons. A lot of this is learn grant writing language, but you know what I mean, narratives. And then, of course, drafting our actual answers to the questions. So, Chris, I think there's just a little micro lesson in the back end of this that you could explain. You want to
Yeah.
like, let's just air out more embarrassing stories. Let's go.
Yeah, it's really embarrassing. So like this is one of those lessons that's like truly written in blood. So I've probably repeated this mistake more times than I care to admit. So like a lot more than once. But I'll just give you like a real true story. So we had a farmer, like an egg grader. They're trying to build like a massive egg grading station. And so they wanted to apply for, I think it was 3 different grants. And so we signed them as a client and we're like, okay, we did the funding strategy. We picked the 3 grants and we're like, okay, we're just gonna start with the first grant. And everything you've seen me do today, we did for them. Okay, we got them like funding ready. We researched the grants, we built the context, and like out came the first grant and they were like, awesome. It was like done in like, literally it took us maybe like 5-10 hours to do it. And it was out the door and they loved it. And actually subsequently they've been awarded that grant. So then they were like, okay, like let's like the next 2 grants should take like less time. And so we ran the same process and ran all the same things through, all of our AI models. And like the second grant was like stalled. It was like 4 weeks later, we hadn't got it submitted. The client was like asking all sorts of like crazy questions. And they were like, are you using AI? And like, why did you change this? And why did you change that? And I was like really frustrated. Like I was like pissed. I was like, yo, like this is really good. And turns out it was like, no, we won the first grant because it was like already written. We didn't have to rewrite the stuff. So like you didn't need to generate a new project description. You didn't need to generate a new draft budget. Like we didn't need to do anything. All we needed to do is like literally take the stuff and copy and paste it over and maybe like rewrite a couple things. We didn't have to write all the different sections. So it was super embarrassing. And yeah, anyways, we ended up just like figuring it out and went back to the client. We're like, okay, we're just gonna like copy all this stuff, paste it over, and we'll adjust like our pricing with you because like you're now realizing it's just copy and pasting. So it's like very embarrassing, but it is true. So we learned the hard way that if you know everything about one of your clients, you can repurpose a ton of work.
Yeah, exactly. So there you have it. More messy lessons learned the hard way, brought to you, saving you time. Okay, so lesson number 7, AI doesn't do novel. So new and novel ideas we often know are what get funded. They make the best grant applications. But the problem is large language models are terrible at explaining new ideas because they are trained on past information and they don't have intelligence despite their name. So through a lot of trial and tribulation, I know Chris also has some blood wounds from this one. We've discovered that there are actually a number of sectors where you really are better off writing grants the traditional way, like taking your time to just write out those concepts because you really can't get the shortcuts. Those are often found in theoretical research grants. So thinking about NASA or National Science Foundation grants, healthcare research, if you're doing something novel, like a novel way of curing cancer that hasn't been seen before, social good initiatives, again, like some of these would be fine, but if you're doing something that's totally unproven and untested, that would qualify as not necessarily being able to use AI. Or environmental solutions, again, if you're doing something so novel, like this is totally new way of removing GHGs that's never been done before, and there is zero research, right? So this is where often, like, we really wanted to get into SBIRs, for instance, because hello, he's got all this for-profit business experience in Canada. That would parlay really nicely down in the States with our SBIR and STTR programs. But the reality is many of those applications are totally novel concepts. And I know that there's some people out there that are like, whatever, I've used it to do novel. And well, you got to submit evidently your idea because there is literally $1 million prize to anyone who can get a large language model to solve a novel problem, a novel puzzle that a 5-year-old can solve. And the reality, if the model hasn't been trained on it, it can't do it. So just like gotta accept us, our lessons learned the hard way on that, that there's things that it can do well and things that it can't do so well. So there you have it for those of you that were freaking out about grant writing fully taking over or losing their jobs. Not anytime soon. Okay, so that leads us to lesson number 8, which I did see a couple questions that were around like the ethics. And that was largely why we were at that fundraising AI summit, was that's a conversation about the ethics of AI. Okay, so AI has a lot of biases. Okay, well, that is an unfortunate reality because AI is made by humans and humans have biases. So there are organizations like take OpenAI or Anthropic, Meta, Google, X especially, right, that have these inherent biases. And so what we have to do as grant writers is actually get to understand what, like, will those biases hurt us or be helpful to us with our specific grant writing needs. So just to give you an example of that, this is where somebody, Jared, asked ChatGPT, can you please write me a 1,000-word essay on why men should lead women? And it said, basically, I'm sorry, I can't write that essay because promoting the idea that men should lead women it goes against the principles of gender equality. But then asked the same question of, can you do this for why women should lead men? And it wrote a nice long essay. So you can see like that's like a very simple example of how the biases are really baked in, okay? So what are you supposed to do? In this situation, you really want to categorize what are the funders' objectives, what are the fundees' objectives, and then select the AI that's best suited from that grid. And Chris, I don't know if we actually, we didn't make anything for this, I don't think. Yeah. Do you have anything you want to add about this? Because like you obviously did. Okay. So it's just like, just recognize that it's one of those things where you just want to zoom out and take a little bit of time about thinking the tool that you're using. A couple things that are useful for you. We just ripped out chapters from when Alex wrote in my book, a chapter on our own human bias. I think it's one of the best ways to get to know AI biases is even getting to know our own biases and how what our relationship is to it. So that's lesson number 8. Now, the question that I know Joel, he's in the collective, he's just posted something on Circle this morning about privacy. So I just want to get into this. So lesson number nine is that privacy is nuanced. So organizations care about privacy, but the reality is not every little bit of data that you feed into AI needs to be protected. A lot of that information lives on their website, or it's in public pamphlets, or it's in, right? There's a lot of information that's already out there in the public domain. So the best way to handle this is build your own data privacy policy by category of information so that you have a policy and or your organization that you can use. This is what Beta did, and this is going to be available to you. So essentially, if you think about every major chunk of a grant application, you've got the description, history, services, and products. There's no issue with privacy in using AI tools for that because the reality is that's publicly available information. Now, who you serve, this is where it could be check with the client, right? Like, is there certain things where this is not appropriate or the market served? Again, like, especially for those like really creative, like innovative business grants. Some of them didn't, they wanted to protect kind of their competitive advantage. Partners, again, like probably no adverse effect, but just check. Team, no issue there because their information's on LinkedIn. But then you could say, okay, but the financials sensitive, don't share that. So if you're going to be building a budget, use like scratch numbers or do it by hand, or success metrics or historic funding. Like you don't have to, you don't need to use these things unless you decided that, like your organization decides that you were okay with it. So this policy is available. And the other thing we looked at was, and I didn't make a slide for it, but linking out the privacy policies of every single one of the major tools that we recommend. So we give you a list of multiple AI tools that were actively being used in the role of being a grant writer, and the privacy policies are linked there with a summary. So that'll help you, because the reality is things changed. ChatGPT was learning off of every bit of information. The public was not into that. They listened and they changed so you can toggle that off and not have it learn with your information. So just recognize that like maybe things you heard aren't accurate anymore, and it's worth going and checking the latest policy. So that's a quick discussion on privacy policies. So that went pretty quick, which was, how are we doing? Oh, we're so like, okay about running out of time. So I know many of you are probably like, holy macaroni, I feel like this guy, right? That was a lot to take in. You're going to get the replay, but let's get into now what? Like, how do we take it out of this Zoom call and into your actual workflow? Okay, so zooming out, what does this mean if you're a grant writer? So the 4 ways I want you to truly embody how you can use AI as a grant writer is communication management. Like if you're not using Fathom, like what the heck, that thing is amazing, right? But so we can do a lot for just streamlining meeting times. Then we have summarizing PDFs and documents. Like that's super, super duper valuable. Research and data analysis. And then of course, draft writing using custom GPTs, chain of thought, prompt techniques, and formatting. Spoiler alert. Everything else is a shiny object that is not production ready. These are proven, tested, positive use cases of using AI in your business. Don't let the other stuff distract you. Now, where are my unicorns? What about Unicorn CoPilot? I know some of you are asking, anybody, where are my unicorns in this program? Probably like, what the heck? What about it? Yeah, I got my unicorns there. Hi, guys. Okay, so what about Unicorn CoPilot? We spent tons of time with Chris building like our own software to help you with this process. Now what? Well, you guys, Unicorn CoPilot is rest in peace. We're going to put him to sleep. It's time to move on. And here's why. I know it's sad. I know many of you are literally logging in yesterday and having login issues and asking about it. So obviously this is sad to like throw it out, right? But the thing is, it's not. What we learned was you are ultimately so much better served by us taking all of the knowledge that Chris has and breaking that down into more like step-by-step instructions of how to use the tool versus trying to just give you one tool that does it all. So yes, we are going to retire Unicorn CoPilot, but in its place can be something so much better. So for you, this is a screenshot of Circle. You all know what this looks like if you're inside the collective. I know, RIP, just like we need a retirement party, like just a little bit of a sorry, CoPilot, we're gonna miss you. But this in circle, you're going to see train your AI bestie. And this is where all of the trainings that Chris has built you are going to be in here for you to have at the end of the day. So just scroll down and you'll see it. Okay, if you're not a grant writing unicorn yet, I should say, then how do you get access to all this stuff? So you can get the AI Bestie Guide, which is what we're calling it, for $109 for the next 24 hours. And then it's going to increase in price. And then it's only going to go up from there. We spent thousands of hours and thousands of dollars figuring out everything that links out of these guides. So do I have, where are my helpers? Rose, you want to maybe drop in the link for that? That would be good. Okay, so what all is included in there? So there's the style guide for getting AI to write well. So that's all of that like hard-earned that like he's already built the prompts. You literally copy, paste. AI tools for grant writing so you can know how to use multiple AIs. How do you build funder and Fundy context templates, the funder extraction prompting guide. There's a context template builder, the privacy policy templates, you'll get that. And then honestly, my favorite thing in the whole bit is this how to create a custom GPT in 20 minutes. You're going to love that. And then there's a few other resources in there for good measure. So yeah, Rose just linked it. Can you make it like just a whole Google Doc? Because that's kind of a lot. Yeah, thanks. That's a little bit easier. Sweet. Okay, so here's the real deal behind all of this. If you all like with your purchasing power say, yes, I want this guide and it's useful to me, if enough people buy it, Chris will come to Alaska and he'll sit right next to me and he and I are going to build a way more robust mini course and series of resources to give you all of the how-to information that he and I have on how do you use these tools to build $1 million grant writing consulting business with just 2 to 3 people. And if you're an in-house nonprofit grant writer, it's just going to show you how to absolutely slay it at your job. And then we'll tell you how to ask for a pay rise. So your purchasing of this AI Bestie Guide signals to us that we should carve the time and actually build something even more robust than what we're already giving you. So just know that it's kind of like the power is in your hands if you want to take this further. So there you have it. Get access to all of the information, all of the links, all of the templates. Just make sure you take action before 24 hours from tomorrow. And unicorns, remember, you're getting it for free. And it'll be in a specific email going out today. Okay, so let's wrap this puppy up. So is AI taking my job? I think this is the question everybody thought of. And I thought for a hot second last April that it sure as heck was with what Chris was doing, right? I mean, he was absolutely killing it. I'm like, okay, everything I know is being tested. But one of the most powerful things that's emerged from this is that we've actually come back to, like, actually everything we teach works and it is the best practice. It is, and Chris, you can probably say like yourself better than anybody because you just tested every assumption I had.
Yeah, I mean, look, we acted as a grant writer, and the very thing I will tell you right now is like your skill set that is valuable is your critical thinking, is your project management skills, is your organization skills. AI is not gonna take those. So as long as you're selling those and you're prioritizing those, you will always have a job, and those things are always going to be in demand. People like working with people. That's the reality of it. So if you're smart, you're hardworking, and you understand grants, and you're a good thinker, good problem solver, you got a job forever.
Yeah, exactly. So how do I go about learning all these tools? So that would be buy the AI Bestie Guide, get started, build your first custom GPT. You can literally do it in an hour or 20 minutes, doesn't even take that long. And then again, like if you signal to me that you want to do it, then we're going to build something way more robust that's going to like blow your socks off, and you would get grandmothered in, I should say, and everyone else is going to definitely pay more. So if you want to join us in the collective and you're not, you've literally got all these unicorns here. You can ask them for their experience. Feel free to just reach out to me directly and we can talk about it if you want to check it out. So help me love on Chris for helping put this deck together and getting to represent it. So what do we want to say? Thank you. Yes, I would love that. Chris is the GOAT. There you go. Yeah, thank you for helping me express my gratitude for all that Chris has done and poured into us at Learn Grant Writing. It's been absolutely amazing to have you as a partner through all of the trials and tribulations of figuring out what AI for grant writing looks like. Yay, you're blowing up in the chat, man.
Thank you. Appreciate
All
it.
right. Bottom line is like, however you choose to integrate AI into your life, it's okay. I actually have a couple photos. I'm just going to show you really, really fast because I think this is kind of funny. I stripped it from the deck. So I think many of you knew I grew up on a cattle ranch and we used to feed the cows literally by hand. Like you should have seen my abs at age 16 because you'd put the hay on this wagon and you have to like literally pitchfork it off to feed 500 cows a day. And we were this is my grandpa with the horses. So we were basically the last ranchers of, I swear, like the last 1% of ranchers to stop cutting our hay and feeding it to our cattle this way. And then we switched to bales, right? Round bales, which this is actually an alfalfa bale, but it's the only one I had a picture of. I think I don't have another one. Oh yeah, here you go. There's a video. I was raking and my sister was baling. So like this is the new technology, right? And we were so late to being a tech adopter, but the upside was other people had already spent their money making mistakes and us figuring out how it worked. That's what Chris and I have done for you. Like we went out front, we made some dumb mistakes and spent all the money so that you don't have to, and you can be like my family that just like rolled in and learned how to use this technology at the like once it's already been sorted out. So I just wanted to share that with you that like don't like put a lot of emotion on yourself no matter where you're at on this. Like just have fun, just give it a try. So we would love to have you in the collective. If you're not, I'd say you can find us on Instagram, but we're actually blocked from our account and we don't know when we're going to get it back, but you can email us. So info@zenworks.org, or of course you can find me on LinkedIn at Meredith Noble. So yes, I think that's a wrap. How are we feeling? Can I get like number one takeaway in the chat? That would be helpful. Thank you so much for, yeah, Krista, you just bought the AI guide. Thanks. Cool. Right on. So tangible. Yes, you know that's how we roll. Amazing. Yay. So good. So many good takeaways here. I can't even read that fast, you guys, and I'm a fast reader. I'm going to rewatch this 100 times. Well, no, go watch the stuff that's the how-to guide. That's going to be where it's really at. So much easier to wrap wrap your head around all this. Yes, totally. 100%. I am not an early adopter, right? I was raised by ranchers. Like Chris is the early adopter. I'm coming along and synthesizing it. So anyone fits into this picture here. So good. Amazing. Okay, well, I think that's a wrap. Where are we at on time? Yeah, we're just a smidge over. Not bad. Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to stop sharing. Thank you, Chris, for coming. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you, and I'll stay on after if you have questions to ask. But everybody else, Chris, you're welcome to bounce, or everyone else that needs to leave.
I'll hang
Or
out.
you want to? Okay, well,
Yeah.
cool. We're going to do some Q&A then for like, and if you want to go, you're welcome to. Otherwise, yeah, let's do Q&A. Alex, I think you grabbed a bunch of them, and you probably have them aggregated, right?
Yeah, I think Erica did, so I'm going to bring her up.
Okay. And yeah, it is going to be a YouTube video, Nancy. We tried to live stream, so you should go see if it's actually live. We don't know yet if it's working.
It is live. It's happening right now. I think we have
Wow.
8 streamers on YouTube, which is really exciting.
So funny. Sick. Okay, so what you got for questions? Hit us.
Okay, let's go. Let's go from the bottom top, actually. This one is from Rob. What are you hearing about foundations' attitudes towards AI? I've heard anecdotes of foundations using AI to screen for proposals written with AI in order to disqualify them. Are grant makers starting to be more accepting of AI?
I'm not sure if Chris can answer that question. That actually is probably a better one for me. And I don't have a good answer for that. That's a good question though. We'll have to like look into it more. I mean, I think that the difference is you can smell something written by AI from a mile away if it hasn't been edited. So, and that they have every good reason to be repulsed by that because that writing is general and crappy. Let's be real. So do better than that. And that's what we're showing you, which is use it to get you to your 70% first draft and then use your intelligence and your critical thinking to make it your own body of work that is truly a reflection of your writing and your team's. So then it would not be an issue because then it is not traceable or obvious because it's truly reflecting your voice. And that gets even better when you build your own custom GPT. So it's truly trained in your tone. Next question.
All right, this one's from Anna. Is there a best practice for quoting AI or citing AI as a resource in grant applications?
I don't know. Chris, do you have an answer for that? I mean, I never would have thought to cite it because it's just like more of an editing.
I'm asking about citing sources because I'm
Oh,
just that kind of
sources.
nerd, you know?
Yeah. Well, sources like, I mean, yeah, sure, I understand. That's a good question. Chris, do you have an answer for that?
Yeah, so if you use Perplexity, so again, I'm such a proponent on Perplexity only because I tried to build a competitor and they're way better. Um, so Perplexity will actually cite sources for anything it gives you. So whenever we were doing grants, we're big on citing sources too. If we're gonna like reference research, we want to like cite where it's from, provide the links and everything. So the best tool I know of from AI perspective is Perplexity to do that. And it'll literally give you the bullet point description and then it'll give you the source and you can like just copy that and put it in your docs. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's how we did it.
Cool. Yeah, next question.
All right, this one is from Rebecca Raber. Does anyone get pushback from clients on the cost of writing a grant now that AI can do much of the initial drafting? I haven't gotten there yet, but anticipating how I might respond if that came up.
Okay, so two things. If you're in my program, you know, we don't coach on hypotheticals, we coach on real situations. So wait until you have a situation like that and then bring it to me, because otherwise we can speculate until the cows come home. But the answer to that is value-based pricing all the way. Just because we're not in a rush to just crank out more and more and more work. The point here is to be buying back your time, buying joy into your life, and producing great work, but that doesn't mean that it's coming at a discount just because, and that's why hourly was already dead to me. And now it is like extremely dead to me. Like that sucker is in the mantle of the earth. Okay. That's why we cannot be charging on hourly, because what would Chris have done now? All of a sudden he's only billing 4 hours for a really complex federal grant because that's all it took. That's not equitable. So remember, we're always anchoring in the value of what we deliver, and all of that I talk about inside the collective with a pricing model that we call cake pricing.
Yeah, the only thing I would add, Meredith, is like when we sold 150 grants, we never sold one on ours. We sold everything on a project price.
Yeah.
And nobody ever asks, how are you going to do it? They just say, that's a fair price. Do it. I want the grant written.
Yeah. I mean, where else do you get an ROI like this where you put in 10,000 and you get 500,000 back or whatever? It's amazing. Okay, next question.
This one's from Joel. Is this limited to ChatGPT? I can't I assume uses their ChatGPT because it trains with user input. So my client's proprietary information gets saved on a public server, which violates NDAs.
No, then Joel just needs to go check what I said. You can get the pro, take that so it's not training on it off. And then also remember, your clients are special snowflakes, but they're not as snowflakey as they think they are. There's a lot of stuff you can use. Chris, you have anything to add?
I would just say like, so I've showed a lot of demos using Perplexity and ChatGPT, but the principles of what we're showing you and how to structure and how to think about anything can be applied to any of the ChatGPT competitors, whether it's Microsoft Copilot, Google Gemini, Claude, whatever your point is. So you can take the same principles and you can use them in any of the other tools that you want to use. Second thing I would say is like double check that statement because and then think about what data you're talking about because like just doesn't seem fully thought out to me. Not all data is sensitive, not all data goes to ChatGPT.
Yeah. So just look at those privacy policies that are linked out and you'll have access to that in a couple hours inside the collective. Okay.
This one is from Abdulaziz. Apologies if I said your name wrong. More so on the ethical side. I want perspective on the ethical side of using AI for grant writing.
I'm skipping it, to be honest. Just go to the next question because I feel like I answered that.
Okay. I think most of the ones I have collected, you have covered in the past.
The further you go up, we
can
kind of got those.
box.
Yeah. Totally. Are we missing anything else? When will the AI training be on Circle for Unicorns? See you at the end of the day. And again, so good. There's so much good stuff. Otherwise, buy the guide, you guys, because it's going to go up like 5 times more. And if you get grandmothered in, you're going to be very proud of yourself. So good. Okay. So yeah, I think we're there, you guys. I think we did this. This is great. Thank you for the 254 that have hung strong through Q&A. Not bad. This is awesome. Thank you for the do-over. I think Chris, like, how would you rank this? Like, this was so much of a better experience. Moral of the story, we're running our own show, y'all. It's way easier, way better. So
10 times better.
Oh, that was great. Okay, sweet. All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you later and hit us up if you've got any questions. Bye.